Hey, welcome to another eXp Mastery Commercial Real Estate Tactical Broker Training, where we believe most brokers, whether you're a real estate broker, commercial real estate broker, they struggle with clarifying, how to make cold calls, how to close for meetings, how to make proposals, how to underwrite deals, what kind of tax deferral options are available for their clients who have, challenges when they exit. How to eliminate a need for the 1031 exchange. In other words, how to solve problems. And we're focused like a laser on helping you as a broker, whether you're part of eXp or just looking at it maybe for the first time, to level up your game. My name is Brett Swarts, and I am an eXp commercial real estate broker. I'm also the founder of Capital Gains Tax Solutions, and I'm joined by an amazing real estate agent, soon-to-be broker, I believe. He's also working on that out in Chico, California. He's a part of the eXp Mastery team. We're building a full national kind of really team and business with those who are in real estate and interested in joining a team that really adds value and thinks about ways to help others, help one another to build their businesses and help their clients out. Brent Silverbauer. Brent, how you doing, brother?
Doing awesome. Thanks so much for having me on here. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. So we're just going to be going through some training, right? Some tactical broker training, and we're going to do a little bit of role play, and we're going to ask questions, and we're going to dive in to mostly multifamily investment real estate brokerage, but it also can apply, because I believe, Brent, if you can play at the pros, and I believe commercial real estate is the pros, right? You can also play in residential game, right? It kind of covers a lot of things. And so that being said, last week, Brent, we spoke about the purpose of a cold call, as well as we talked about the purpose of the first listing appointment. Do you want to give a little bit about, if you can recall, I'm curious on your memory here, what was it about and what did you learn last week?
Yeah, so last week it's about cold calling, and the purpose of the cold call is to get the second meeting, and that's it. It's not to sell the deal. It's not to sell anything. It's only to get another meeting.
And why is that, Brent, right? Because if we're having the meeting over the phone, what zone does that put us in?
Friend zone.
Friend zone. We all have the
friend
friends.
zone.
We all have the friends, right? Guys or gals, right? Who are really, really, really friendly. There's nothing wrong with being friendly, right? But they become the friend zone, which means they never really get the commitment. They never really get the date. Which if you don't get the date, you don't get the engagement. If you don't get the engagement, you don't get married, right? And so you have to realize that people move at the speed of trust, right? We all do. This is basic human relationships. If we're trying to move so fast on a phone call to just dive right into let's say a committed, business relationship, it's going to be very difficult. So you got to give people time and space to digest. And so you're not going to have that date on the phone. In fact, you're going to have that date in person, and you're going to get to know each other, hopefully like each other, hopefully trust each other, which leads us to, so the purpose of the phone call is to get the first appointment, the first listing appointment, which now becomes what? Once you're on that listing appointment, what are you doing, Brent? What is the purpose of that first listing appointment?
Yeah, so you're building rapport, know, like, and trust, and you're also presenting your proposal too at the end of that. But primarily in the front end, you're getting to know them, you're building relationship, that kind of thing.
Let me adjust a little bit. So we actually would say that the purpose of that after that first meeting is not to present the proposal, although sometimes you might have had a relationship with somebody over many years, right? The purpose of that first listing appointment is to determine if a proposal is warranted based upon their needs and what they're trying to accomplish.
That's right.
So it is to build rapport. This is why it's a good reminder for us to get back on and do that. And by the way, have there been times when I've gone on a first listing appointment and presented a proposal? Yes. And is it practicing what's called possibility brokerage? Yes, it's a possibility. And have I won deals with that? Yes. Okay. But what is the most probable brokerage? We want to practice the best practices, right? Like for example, if you're in baseball, right, you probably want to do batting practice a certain amount of times a week. You probably want to do it in a certain order. You probably want to warm up in a certain way. Are there people who can show up that are pros and not have to do some of that prep work during the week? Sure. And can they still succeed? Yes. Okay. But especially if you're just starting out, or especially if you're trying to grow, or even if you're just a seasoned person, you want to get back to the basics. And the basics is the first point of a call is to get the first listing appointment. Now, that first listing appointment is to determine what are the needs? What are the wants? What are the desires? What are the pain points? Where are they trying to go? What are they trying to do? right? And you're just asking a lot of questions. In fact, 80% of the time should be them talking and them expressing their story, their motivations, their ambitions, right? Their pain points, their desires for their wealth, for their time, for their energy, for their property, all of these things. And as you're absorbing that, you're like a good doctor. You're going to be taking good notes, right?
Mhm.
And at the end of that, first listing appointment, you're going to determine, is an X-ray necessary? Is an MRI necessary? Man, is surgery necessary, right? Or is there something we can do where you don't need to do all those major things? In fact, you're probably in a good spot. And like a good real estate broker at fiduciary looking out for them, you're not trying to get them to sell. You're not trying to do anything except for what's best for them. Now, selling might be the best thing for them. When I had my ACL surgery done for my knee, the surgeon said, you need an ACL surgery if you want to come back and play basketball, right? You're going to get an MRI, we're going to get an X-ray, right? But we took these steps and these processes, right? And so the purpose of this whole meeting is just to determine what their motivations are, if there's true motivations, and if your service of listing and selling the property is necessary. And as a part of that, to determine if a proposal is warranted. And that proposal is like the X-ray, it is like the MRI, right? And that is to be presented at the second meeting, right? So there's the phone call, there's the first listing appointment, and there's the second meeting, which is the proposal. So say that back to me. What does that make sense? Or make sure you understand that.
Yeah, totally. I just, like you said, I've been in situations where, that first call or meeting is, also in conjunction with the proposal, probably because the first phone call was more than just getting the first meeting. But you're right. Okay, so first call, cold call, get the meeting to diagnose if they need to sell, if they need to, whatever they need to do. Second meeting, then possible proposal presentation.
Yeah. Second meeting would be to present that, right? And so one way we determine whether or not they actually have true motivation is we ask a question towards the end of this. And by the way, when you go meet with someone, practice asking open-ended questions.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about how you got into this business, this real estate business.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about what you do in your daytime. What do you do in real life? Like, what's your regular day job? Tell me about your love for commercial real estate, multifamily investing. Tell me about the hardest thing you've had to go through as far as tenants are concerned with COVID. Tell me about your interest rate on your loan. Tell me about how rents are trending. Tell me about how student housing declines, are happening in Chico locally and how that might affect your occupancy. Like, what are your thoughts on that? So I'm just trying to really understand. And then I'm also going to mirror what they said. Mirror means saying maybe the last couple words that they just said and or summarizing what they just said and asking them to confirm that you're on the same page. All right. And you can start with, it seems like, it feels like, it sounds like. It seems like, it feels like, it sounds like. If I'm hearing you correctly, you're a little bit concerned that your adjustable rate mortgage, if it adjusts. So now I'm going to more close-ended questions, right? I start with open-ended, and now I'm going to more close-ended. It seems like you might be concerned. Or is it, people always also love the word no, right? They love to say the word no because it gives them a chance to feel safe. In sales, we generally want to ask yes-oriented questions like, hey, does that make sense? And this is one of my ones that I've got to like retrain my brain because I've always been, hey, does that make sense? And then yes. Well, sometimes when people are always just saying yes to that, they may not feel safe about what else could be there. So you might try to reword that to say something along the lines of, does that sound unreasonable to think that if interest rates were to adjust on your mortgage, that it could be, it could hurt your cash flow? No. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so you start to really work with them, talk with them. And as you're diagnosing these notes, right, you're going to move to a point where you're going to ask this question. And this question is basically a conditional agreement question, right? Basically, it's like, if this, would you, or if there's anything that would hold you back, would you? So Brent, let's see, we'll test you a little bit. What is that question? And let's practice asking it.
Yeah. So you're talking about like a closing statement. Okay.
Not a closing statement, but it's actually the statement that's going to bring some things out. But
we're getting out of the friend zone. We're getting out of the friend zone with this statement. That one.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. If we can agree on price and terms, is there any reason that you wouldn't go with me to exclusively list the property?
You nailed it, right? Let's break that down. And you might word a little bit more, assuming we can agree on price and terms to your satisfaction, right? With the proposal that I bring back next week to address your 1, 2, and 3 concern, is there any reason why you wouldn't exclusively allow me to list your property? And you see how I'm starting to stack that value. If I'm not asking these open-ended questions and if I'm not addressing their concerns, their challenges, their pain point, their desires, this question is not going to be as strong. So you said a short one, but I want to expand it a little bit more. So let's imagine their pain point was interest rates, it was student housing, it was price, right? And I would say something along the lines of, it seems like there's some motivation to sell if these 3 things are, are true. And if I come back with a proposal, I'm going to spend time and energy putting this together for the next, week or 2. I'm going to study the rent comps, the sales comps. I'm also going to show you stats that show what we're referring to with the student housing declining and why this is actually a big concern. And assuming we can agree on price and terms, and to your satisfaction, I answer 1, 2, and 3 that we just talked about. Is there any other reason why you wouldn't allow me to exclusively list your property for you and sell it? And then you want to be quiet. And they're going to think. And I'm going to say, well, Brent, what about your fee? Let's talk about fee. What questions or thoughts do you have about fee? Well, in the past, we just want to have a good deal, Good deal. Tell me, what does a good deal look like for you? Happy to talk about that. See how I'm mirroring what they're saying, right? I'm not just negotiating against myself and just automatically giving a number, right? Because what does that mean to them, right? What does that? We don't even know. We don't know. We don't know if 6% or 5% is the number, or why they might have these thoughts. So tell me about that. What are your concerns, or what are your thoughts, or what have you done in the past? Well, in the past we negotiated this other deal. It was pretty good. Well, tell me about that. What about that deal? What? Tell me about their marketing, their energy, and their investment that they made with the fee. Now I'm digging into this a little bit, right? But I'm not overcoming it. Okay, I'm just asking them about it, and I'm going to get all of that out about what their concern is and where they're at there. And I'd say, so it seems like fee is definitely a thing that you'd want to talk about and work with. Am I hearing you right? Yeah. Okay. Well, I'd love the opportunity to put the proposal together to address the interest rates that we talked about, the student housing challenge, the price to show you that, and also address your fee. And so when I come back with the proposal, assuming we can agree on price and terms, what's going on in the marketplace, the sales comps, and also this fee, is there any other reason why you wouldn't allow me to exclusively list the property for you? Okay. So it's key here. I'm not overcoming the fee. And I know everything in us wants to just say, here it is, let's move forward. But I'm trying to draw anything else out, which might lead to, well, I've got this broker that helped me put the deal together, right? And he's a really good broker and I really like him. Tell me more about that. Tell me about your relationship. Tell me about the deal. Tell me about his expertise. Tell me how local he is. Tell me about it. Really flesh that out, right? And now I'm stacking it again, right? All the way through. Assume we can agree on price and terms. And I can show you how, as here's a local broker, I can represent you in a way that's going to get you the highest price, the best terms to your satisfaction. Is there any other reason why you wouldn't allow me to exclusively list the property with you? Okay. Now, this is the best practice. Okay. And in an ideal world, you have a call on a Monday, you meet with someone on a Wednesday, and then and then the next week, you meet for the second meeting and you have the listing agreement in hand. But the more you can follow this framework, the more we have found that the probability of getting the listing goes through the roof, because part of it is you haven't done the proposal yet. And in fact, if you're spending all of your time and energy in doing the proposals and coming on the first meeting, you'll probably have a very low listing percentage rate in general, right? And or if you were to go in this way, you're gonna 3x your business, okay? Because you're only going to work with motivated sellers, right, who are committed to working in a business relationship and aren't going to just take your information and shop it against the next agent. Mm-hmm. And I had to learn this the hard way many times, right? Because if you don't dig into each of their objections, they're just going to take what you gave them, especially if you walk in with a proposal right away, and they're going to walk it over to their other broker. They made no commitment to you except to meet with you, right? Basically to go on a date. and they went on the date with you, and they fulfilled their obligation, and you've given them everything they want. It's, great. I got the proposal. I got his fee. I got his thing. I got his, and you haven't asked them as a good business person to give you commitment if you deliver on what they actually want. You see that? So what thoughts do you have on that, Brent?
No, it's excellent, and it's counterintuitive to some degree because obviously you're in the world as a salesperson. You want to sell, but you can't sell anything before you understand your customer. How do you sell something if you don't even know how it's going to benefit them? And so, it makes perfect sense. Understand before being understood. Understand what they need before you even try and sell anything. Because sales at the core of it is solving problems and helping them. And if you don't know what their problems are, then you have no clue. You're flying blind, basically, at that point. And and then they just take your information. If it's just information, you just present it. Hey, like, I'm the super smart guy. They're like, wow, you are a super smart guy. Thanks so much. But I have another agent. You're going to help me sell it with this other guy. And I've had that happen too. Many times where I have the best presentation, all this stuff. Here's what's going on, the best stats about, certain markets. And they just take it. Oh yeah, I already have another real estate agent. I was like, man, why am I even talking to you? I mean, thank you, but I am spending a ton of time, and it's a win-lose situation. The guy wins, I lose because I've just spun my wheels.
You got it right. So what are the most common things that someone's going to bring up? Of course, they're going to bring up fee, right?
Yeah.
You're going to bring up length of the listing, right? Well, how long are you going to have the listing for? Mm-hmm. They're going to bring up, what's your marketing efforts going to be like, right? They're going to bring up maybe their spouse isn't at the meeting, and maybe their spouse is the actual decision maker, right? Or maybe it's their son or daughter that's helped them with the property for many, many, many years, right? Mm-hmm. And so these are the things, as you ask that question, is there any other reason why you wouldn't allow me to exclusively list the property? If we do A, B, C, and D, and I can show you that in the proposal, how the business plan is to execute what you're trying to achieve. Is there any other reason why you wouldn't allow me to exclusively list the property? Well, I really need my son here. He's really been running the property. He's kind of like, my go-to to make sure we're doing everything. Fantastic. Love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. What's your son's name? His name's Jonathan. Awesome. Tell me about Jonathan. He manages the property. He helps does he want to own more property someday? Like, get to know Jonathan. Ask all those questions. Great. Hey, tell you what, let's have Jonathan at the next meeting, right? I think that's really important to make sure we're all on the same page. Assuming Jonathan feels amazing about listing and selling the property, and we can agree on price and terms with the fee and the, and understanding, where the market's at. Is there any other reason why you wouldn't allow me to exclusive the property? It does, again, a couple things, right? It shows that you're actually really listening and you really care, right? If you're not asking these questions and really helping them to draw it out, sometimes they don't even know until you ask them the question. And so the worst thing is to not draw this out. Again, back to the doctor analogy, right? The doctor shows up and he sits there, right? And he starts asking you questions, right? Tell me about how you feel, right? Where does it hurt? When did it start hurting? When does it hurt at certain times of the day, or this or that? Like, and you're like, as you're sitting there, like, well, now that I think about it, this, and this, right? Had he not asked those questions, perhaps he's completely off the guardrails and doesn't even require that MRI. But because he has you thinking about what actually has happened, then it actually gets to the root of what's happening. So the same thing is true with the seller who's sitting there listening to you. They're going to say, in fact, yeah, I do need to make sure my son's on board, man. And had you not asked that question, they might not have brought it up. And then guess what happens? They call their son, or you present the proposal next and he's not there. Then all of a sudden you've gone on the second listing appointment and the son wasn't there. He feels left out, and the mom or dad doesn't want to, hurt the son. In fact, this happened to me, right? I literally went through the first in the proposal to find out at the very, very end of the second meeting, after doing all the work, that their son was getting a real estate license and had an aspiration of selling commercial real estate. And he was feeling crushed that his parents were going to hire somebody else. And so I spent all the time and energy for everything. And that's why they didn't list the property with me. I remember it. Like, to this day, I'm like, oh my gosh. So whose fault is that? That's my fault. I didn't ask the questions, right? I didn't ask. I mean, by the way, I still think I did actually ask that question. Sometimes it doesn't come out. But as best as you can, extract as much as you can so that you can serve them at the highest level. Does that make sense, Brent?
Yes, it does. Absolutely.
All right, now we're going to move into a Q&A part of this part. So, Brent, what questions do you have this week on commercial real estate brokerage or deals you're putting together?
Yeah, I got some specific questions, especially one right here. So you were on a call with me with some sellers, 8-unit, small multifamily boutique broker, boutique kind of multifamily. And, one of the things is we did the DST, we pitched that to them. They're not interested in doing that, but they have no loan, $3 million property, 2.8 million. And they're afraid of the capital gains, as everyone is. Sell high, buy higher. They're afraid of that. They get stuck in this 45 days to identify. So one of the things I suggested is, hey, here's an idea. It could be a bad idea, whatever, but taking $1 million down, so 33% down, and then carrying a note on $2 million, 5% interest. When you do the math, it's, you're making, almost 6 figures off the interest. You get $1 million, but they were nervous about the tax ramifications. You're capital gains tax expert. And that kind of a strategy with a carryback note, what would you recommend in that kind of a situation? They're actually, and I told them, instead of renting apartments, you could rent money, which doesn't have any toilets, termites, trash. And if the person fails, you take that property back with $1 million. You keep that. So they thought that was pretty cool, but I don't know. They had questions about the taxes. What do you say about the taxes, and what advice can we?
Yeah. So the first question is, how long do you want to defer the taxes for?
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, they just don't, it seems like what they said, they have 2 goals: 1, to make more money, and 2, with less work.
Yeah. So this definitely does less work, right? Because they're not owning the property anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it may or may not make more money depending on the interest rate and the term of the note. But the really key is, how long do you want to defer the taxes for? Because most of the traditional installment sales are structured with a 3 to 5 year note.
Yes.
And no prepay, and the ability for the seller to refinance, which unfortunately puts them in a situation where they get taxed, right?
If they refinance,
they get paid off, right?
Maybe they have a prepayment penalty or something before 5. Oh, I lost you. Brett, if you could hear me, I lost you, man. You're gone off this thing. Is the internet slow, Derek?
I think it's coming.
Okay, here we go.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened. I think I actually just got a little glitch in the system there. Glitch in the matrix. Let me see. But you can hear me. Okay, so depending on how long they want to defer it for. So the biggest thing with the traditional installment is they're typically lower in time frame. You forfeit the 1031, and people typically pay you back, honestly, within like 1 to 3 years is what I've seen. They get into a deal and they tie it up and they close quickly, and it's great for the buyer because they're typically able to get a lower interest rate, but it's typically not best for the seller, because what could you have done with the difference on those funds, right? And then on top of that, when they pay you back on early, typically, then it's now you're paying the tax. And so that's the challenge with the traditional installment sale. That's just not great. So you got to ask them how long you want to defer the tax, and make sure they're not getting caught off guard. That I had this happen. In fact, there was a seller here in Sacramento, long-term client of mine, and same thing. I said, "Hey, deferred sales trust is the way to go." He's like, "Yeah, but for whatever reason, I just can't get comfortable with it." Okay, great, no problem. You can, he's, "I'm going to do a traditional installment sale." I said, "Okay. It's up to you. It's your deal." I told him the downsides of it. And sure enough, within a year and a half, they paid him off. And he's like, "Oh, I didn't think they'd pay me off so soon. They told me to wait like 5 or 10 years. And I'm like, "Well, did you put a provision in there that they couldn't pay you off early?" "No." "Well, now I'm faced with like over $1.5 million of tax." And he was really upset. And I said, well, we told you what was happening here, right? And it's unfortunate that it did the way it went down. But he looking back, he regretted it. And so just make sure that they're very clear about when they're going to pay tax, what that's going to look like, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you would advise against that. I like the DST. They just don't want to do it for whatever reason. They don't want to, put their funds in a trust, I guess. So, okay. So it's, you can't take the $1 million.
I would advise against it. I would just make sure they're very clear on what it is and what it's not, because most people have never done an installment sale, and they don't realize that unless you're going to put provisions in, there's a huge prepayment penalty. You cannot get out, any sooner than this. If you do, you're going to pay this amount of money, which then the buyer may not want to do the deal in the first place. They're like, well, that doesn't make any sense, right? They want us to get new financing. They got to be like a very competitive interest rate. So there's just so many things that's why most people don't do traditional installment sales, because you forfeit the 1031, you have no diversification, you have no liquidity, you might have to foreclose on the property. The very reason you're selling the property is to not to do any work. Well, if you foreclose it, you have to do work again. And sometimes you have to pick up all the pieces, right? So this is why you don't ever really see very many installment sales. It's either 1031 exchange or deferred sales trust, because you don't have to count on the seller or the buyer to perform. You can diversify your wealth. You have no timing restrictions on how long you can keep it deferred. And you can even buy more real estate with it if you want to buy more real estate. So yeah, that's the most people, but even me, I've lost deals because of an installment sale for whatever comfort reason person had. Albeit that was like 8 years ago. So it's been a long time since I lost that. Everyone else now is just doing it. But the deferred sales trust, because they're starting to see more of the deals. And I'd also push back too, Brent, once the people actually talk to the people who've done it, like they become way more comfortable, right? Like if someone's objecting to something, say, well, would you at least talk to a few people who had this exact same, hesitations, right? Would you at least talk to a couple people who did it, right? And then all of a sudden they go, oh, a lot of people have done this that were in my exact same shoes, and it turned out really well. Let's do it. But that kind of goes back to the initial conditional question, is there any reason why you wouldn't do this? Right. Well, when they say, oh, we just don't want to do it, and say, well, was there any particular reason why? Well, X, 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 X. Right. If I can come back with a proposal to show you why X, X, and X, and X is actually the opposite of what you're thinking, right? Is there any reason why you wouldn't move forward? Right. So whatever that might be, it could be that, oh, I don't have a 1031 exchange up lake property. Great. I understand that. You're concerned about the 1031 not being there and you're running out of time, correct? Yes. And you have to pay this $1 million tax. Yes. Well, if I can come back to you and show to you how we've never lost a 1031 deal, we've always been able to find a deal, and to your satisfaction, how we can build in certain things to extend escrow and in your favor, is there any other reason why you wouldn't allow me to exclusively list the property with you? And that proposal comes back, and it literally lays out 1, 2, 3 bullet points of their exact objection and then the facts, right? And then that itself overcomes the objective, the objection, right? Does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah. So your proposal is listing their objections and then the solutions to those issues.
And you give them 3 options. You can say, hey, we can do a traditional installment sale. Let me give you the pros and cons. And you go, here are all the pros and cons. Here's the deferred sales trust. Here's the pros and cons. Here's the 1031. Here's the pros and cons. Let's keep an open mind here. And maybe it's a mixture of 1, 2, or 3. You can do a mixture of a couple of different ones, right? It doesn't have to be one or all. But let's actually clarify what you're trying to accomplish. And they're like, well, I don't want any more work and I want to make more money. Okay. Well, if you do a traditional installment sale, how's it going to feel in 2 years if you have to foreclose and now you're 2 years older and you're just getting comfortable with no more work? Now you're having to take it all back and the property's worth less. Are you doing, as a broker, are you doing your client a favor there, or is it just making it worse? Right. So you say that's definitely, and then they say, well, the first sales trust, I'm not comfortable because of X. Okay. Let's talk about that. What is that X? To your satisfaction, if we could show you that, is there any reason why you wouldn't? Well, yeah, if you do it to my satisfaction and you can overcome that, I don't see how you're going to do it, Brent. That's the point. That's why we get paid to do what we do. People think something's impossible or doesn't work, and you come back with a proposal and a business plan and a track record of a team to execute that. Now, all of a sudden, they're on board. Does that make sense? And by the way, this is also a test of negotiation. They're testing to see how you overcome objections. So if someone throws you an objection and it's just, it's not really handled very well, Well, how are you going to handle objections when it comes to negotiating the purchase price of your property? Right? If the negotiation, if you're not a strong negotiator, and they might not like consciously know they're doing this, right? But we do this all the time, right? If I'm going to hire an agent to represent me in a certain state or a certain thing or a different deal or financial advisor, I'm going to test them sometimes subconsciously with questions to see how they actually respond to it.
I feel you. Yeah. So in an installment sale, that down payment, say it's $1 million, you can't 1031 just that portion, right? It's just like,
Yeah, you basically forfeit it. Your 1031. You're picking a red road versus yellow. You pick the yellow road of an installment sale. 1031's gone forever. Same thing with the deferred sales trust. Once you pick the deferred sales trust, 1031's gone forever on that property. So that's why you want to say, is it short? Is it long? Do you want to defer this for a long time? And all of a sudden you're there and they're like, yeah, I want to defer it for a long time. And now you don't just say, okay, well, the deferred sales trust is the answer. You say, okay, let me take that note down. They want to defer it for as long as possible. Great. Now, the next thing, what else do you like about an installment sale? Well, we don't want to have to pay the tax. Okay. Don't want to have to pay the tax. Right. Now, what about a 1031? Well, we don't want to start with a new property. Okay. Don't want to start with a new property. Great. If I can come out with a proposal to your satisfaction to show you, and I'll give you a couple of different options, and then you preface it and you show up and you go, look, I have no dog in the fight. You want to do a 1031 or installment sale or DST, whatever, right? But let me give you the pros and cons of each. You decide, right? And we don't have to, we can still list the property and you have time to decide this. But here's the reality. Like if you don't solve the real problem, right, with an actual solution to their satisfaction, they're not going to list and sell the property with you anyways, right? So, or the worst is you get to the point where you do all the work, you list the property, you're about to go under contract, and you still really haven't resolved the up leg problem. You still haven't really resolved the installment sale problem or the DST or whatever it is. And they just go, that's not enough. Like, I know it's $100,000 less than the $3 million you agreed to. It's pretty close, Brent, but we're just not willing to go to 3 million, or we're not willing to go 2.9. Why? Because you didn't provide a big enough value solution for them. Whereas if you did in the beginning really diagnose and provide good solutions, and all of a sudden they're like, I have clients that are like, oh, this is great. I can cut my price by $200,000 or $300,000 because I got the deferred sales trust, right? Mm-hmm. See it?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think for this specific situation, we need to come back to the DST. They never gave me a clear reason why not to do it. Mm-hmm. And I think it revolves around having their funds forever in this trust.
And that's the first biggest misconception. It doesn't have to be. So, Mr. Seller, if we could show you how it doesn't have to be forever in this trust, is there any other reason why you wouldn't use the DST? Well, how do we know we can trust a third-party trustee? Great. If I could show you how you can trust a third-party trustee to your satisfaction, is there another reason? Well, it's the ongoing fees. If I could show you how you can make the DST an investment, not an expense to your satisfaction, is there any other reason why? Right? You get those things out, right? And then you present the proposal and you say, here's how this answers this, and this. And you use that same concept for anything else that they're objecting to. And here's how we're going to execute that to your satisfaction.
Yeah. I think for this specific situation, we need to go back to the options.
Yep. So what I would recommend is a proposal, right? So to say, hey, we talked about this, and this, right? And I want to bring specific options for you for that exact thing. And let's work through that. But it would be really, really helpful for me before I put this all together to really understand what is it about that you're trying to accomplish. And by the way, on a scale of 1 to 10, how serious are you about not having to do the work and deferring the capital gains tax? I'm a 10, Brent. Okay, well, if you're a 10, then we need a 10 solution. We don't need a 2 solution. That's a Band-Aid, right? In a traditional installment sale, it's just a Band-Aid, right? And obviously we know the 1031 is not your solution because you're just trading 8 units for 8 problems for 16 problems, right? So we're going to have to, there's a reason you haven't sold yet and listed with the broker because no one solved your problem. So, and again, and at the end of this conversation, after I present the proposal, and if the DST is not the solution, hey, then no problem. That's fine. No hard feelings. But I want to, as a good broker and as a good fiduciary, I want to help you see why we're experts in what we do. But you've got to give us a chance to understand this. So what are the specifically, please, just be completely honest with me. What are the reasons? 1, 2, and 3. Great. Let me go back. Okay. And then also too, you don't want to be the person who has all the answers. Great. Let me bring in a tax attorney. He's a genius. This is the edification part. In fact, Brett already introduced you to him, and he's a trustee, but there's other people that, who are amazing. This is all no cost, no obligation. These are some of the best tax attorneys in the country and CPAs. They created it 26 years ago. If I could get a few minutes of their time, would you be open to talking with them? This doesn't cost you, obligate you to anything. They're really nice people, I'm telling you. Yeah, actually, that would be really helpful, Brent. Wow. Can I bring my CPA on? Yeah, of course. Bring him on. Whoa, cool, good. Because I just was afraid to tell you that I needed my CPA to see us. And I just thought it would be too expensive nope. You can bring him on for an hour. We can talk about it. We can do 2 hours, whatever long we need to go. Now, all of a sudden that we call it the black swan. This is what Chris Voss talks about in his book, Never Split the Difference. Like, you didn't even know that black swan was there because you didn't dig deep enough, right? And all of a sudden that black swan changes everything. Yeah, his brother's a CPA and he has to say yes to it. Perfect. Bring your brother in. If we can get your brother to agree and feel good about it, to your satisfaction, his satisfaction, is any reason why you wouldn't do the DST. He's like, no, I do it all day long if he says yes to it. But I did a quick Google search and I called him and he said, oh, don't do it because of this, right? So you don't even know that until you ask the questions and you dig in, you push back, and then you invite them into a conversation.
Right. It's good. I think in this situation, I need to have another follow-up about the taxes, about the capital gains. And we need to bring in their CPA, maybe, you again. I don't know if you have a CPA or someone that they would say, hey, this is an expert.
We have the best. And so you have to have that conviction. So Brent, you still haven't been on the calls with the tax attorneys yet. No. So emotionally, you haven't been there yet. So when you do, and I can invite you to all my next calls so you can be a part of it, you're going to have that conviction, right? To say, these are the best, some of the best in the world at what they do at no cost, no obligation. Would you come onto a call and at least listen and be open-minded to what your objections are? Mm-hmm. And if they're not to that, they're probably wasting your time, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being you don't really want to pay the tax and it's holding you back from selling. How serious are you? I'm actually only a 2. Well, you're saying you're an 8, but you're really only a 2, because an 8 or a 9, you'd come onto a call. If, we had the cure for cancer for whatever you're trying to solve, you'd come and listen, wouldn't you? Yeah. Okay, great. Come on the call. I'm telling you, we're all really nice, great people. There's nothing to be afraid of. And if you're afraid after or concerned, no problem. Don't have to do that structure. But I really do believe the conviction of everything you're telling me, this can be the best, amazing solution for you and your family. So would you come on the call, right? And don't try to overcome it yourself, because you've never done a DST deal, right? Bring on the experts who've done thousands, billions under management, 26-year track record with people, guess what, just like them, who had the exact same objections and were able to overcome it. That's how I would approach that. Does that make sense, Brent?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's my next action step.
All right, so we're out of time here. We're going to be back. By the way, go to expmastery.com if you want to consider joining Brent and I, being a part of our dream team that we're building across the country of brokers. You can be an M&A advisor, a business broker, a commercial real estate, a residential agent. We want to bring in the best of the best, and we want to help our clients at the highest level. And we do these type of tactical trainings every single week. And if you're on the YouTube channel, you can go to expertcresecrets.com. If you're not, you can subscribe for more content like this. And if you want to sell anything, if you're a client listening to this, we are experts in all real estate, really across the country. We have the best of the best, residential or commercial. You can reach out to us and we'll put you in hands with one of our team members or one of our business partners. We're part of one of the largest, fastest growing real estate companies, brokerages in the world. And of course, if you want to exit highly appreciated assets, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. You can learn about this whole deferred sales trust thing we've been talking about this whole time. Like, what is that? We have a book coming out with Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank. And if you want to connect with Brent directly, Brent, how can they find you?
Yeah, just Brent at Brent Sells Chico. You can go to my website, BrentSellsChico.com.
Awesome. We'll see everyone next week. All right. Bye now.